I think that is better for you. So make sure that you connect through that. Okay.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Actually, I'm
Ah,
trying with ITM email ID itself, and it's like
okay.
a week now since I
Okay.
have
So if it's still
asked
okay,
for
if it is
access.
still asking you access, then write to the support team. Probably there is something else going on. Okay.
Sure, ma'am.
Ah, okay. All right. So in any case, I will start for today. I'll share the screen now. Just confirm with me if you are able to see the screen or not. Okay. Okay. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me just change the viewing mode. Okay. Fine enough now. I have logged in through my mobile phone. So in case you have any troubles, just let me know. But if it's about the font size and all that, I think you can zoom in at your end, right? Please do that. So see, so for figures of speech, I think some of you you told me that this is your first class and all. So let's see if we can revise a little bit as we go on. I've had a document like this because last week we had already discussed. So I just wanted to check if people who joined today already understand what these things are. So for the questions you have here, no, I have highlighted the figure part and I've also indicated which figure of speech it is. So as we go on, I would like you to tell me, since most of you weren't there in the last class, uh, let's do this. I'll hear from you if you have understood why, whatever is highlighted in the sentences is considered a metaphor or personification or resonance and so on and so forth. Okay. So we'll do it that way so that there is some amount of revision also that we can do along with it. So in the first sentence that you have, it says she is a star of our family, and it says metaphor. So can you tell me why would you call it a metaphor? Which part is metaphor? It's already highlighted, right? The star part that would be considered the metaphor, right? But why so? What is a metaphor usually? What kind of a figure of speech is it? It is? Do you use it for
Here it is. Here it is direct comparison.
correct,
She
correct.
is
So
compared
direct.
with.
Correct. Yeah. So, uh, just to revise what we had discussed in the last class, I told you that, when you're considering figures of speech, instead of learning them as individual figures of speech, right? So, I think around 10 or 15 you might have for this particular, course. So, instead of looking at each of them one by one, as learning them as metaphor and simile and personification, in an isolation, it's better that you divide them based on the kind of work that they do, right? So classify them. Last week, when we were discussing, we had classified it into some five odd groups. And the first group is of comparison. Metaphor belongs to that group of comparison, right? And like she was saying, what kind of comparison do we have when it comes with metaphor? Direct comparison. Why do we call it direct comparison? Because look at that sentence. She is a star of our family. So you're not saying she's like a star, you're saying she is a star of our family. So there's a direct comparison between whoever that individual is and star. So direct comparison. Now, there is something called indirect comparison. What would be indirect comparison? Like, the sentence that I just mentioned. She's like a star of our family. So whenever you have like, when you're just trying to draw similarities between two using words like again, the there is a comparison involved here, but this is more of an indirect comparison. She's like a star. My love is like a red rose, right? So like a red rose would be an indirect comparison. But in case if I say my love is a red rose, then this is called direct comparison. Okay, and that is a metaphor. So difference between metaphor and simile would be that one is direct and the other is indirect. But both of the figures of speech are used for comparison, right? So the first classification of figures of speech would be comparison. Within that comparison, you have direct and indirect. Direct is for metaphor and indirect is for simile. Okay, this is all you need to know with respect to that. Any question? Have you understood that part?
Yes, ma'am, understood.
Okay. How about others? People have joined today. See, if you want more details, you can go back to the recorded session, right? So we had quite a lengthy discussion on these things. I'm just revising because I say that most of you have just come for the first time here today, right? Okay. So if you have understood, good enough. But if you have questions, you may unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Let's go to the second one. Again, it's a metaphor. Now, this time, I would like one of you to tell me how and why the highlighted words would be considered metaphors, right? The childhood of the world, the anger of the tempest, the deceitfulness of the riches, wine is a mocker. What are we comparing here? So, it is already given metaphor, which means it's a direct comparison. But what is it that we are using for comparison? What is being uh, used in the metaphorical sense? Can you tell me? It's already highlighted, but you'll have to explain it for me. That's all.
Childhood is compared directly with world
Yeah,
and
the age of
wine
the world. But, correct, correct. Anger is related or compared directly to the tempest. You know what tempest is, right? What is tempest?
Is it storm?
It is storm, like a very strong storm, right? Usually tempest, where do you find it? It's usually something that you see in the sea, right? It's a very, very strong wind. So anger, uh, the tempest itself is compared to the a mood or emotion, which is anger, right? Then deceitfulness of the riches, comparison of riches with deceitfulness, right? Now, see, keep one thing in mind. Most of this writing, especially when you talk about figures of speech, uh, this would what we the style of writing is called figurative writing, right? Deriving from the word figures of speech. Uh, Keep in mind when you use figures of speech, we are not talking about the natural quality of anything. Like for example, whenever there is a storm, in this case, you have compared it to an emotion of anger, right? This is not inherent. It does not mean that there is something inherently or naturally angry about tempest, or there is inherently or naturally something deceitful about the riches, right? Uh, in the given context or in certain circumstances when you want to make a comparison, you may use things to talk directly to compare something directly, like in this case. But just because we have used it like this, it does not mean that it's a natural quality of something that you're talking. Like anger is not a natural quality of the tempest, or deceitfulness is not the natural quality of riches. Okay. This is just used as a figurative language to add a little, intensifying effect to the language used, right? Whether speech or writing. Just keep in mind, nothing is natural. This is not when I say direct comparison, I'm not saying that this is a natural quality of something. This is something that you have cooked up for the sake of writing well or to use language more proficiently. Okay. Okay. So metaphorical usage. Metaphorical basically means not real. Okay. Not literal or real. It's not figurative or idiomatic. Okay. I hope you have understood that point, right? So if you haven't, then pause anytime you can ask. Third question again. She is now in the sunset of her days. Sunset of her days. Now, here, what it is being compared to is not given directly in the sentence, but sunset of her days is the metaphor. Can you tell me what probably they are referring to? Sunset of her
old
days?
age. Old age.
Correct. Right? Old age. So that person's old age is being referred to here as the sunset of her days. Okay. Okay. Fourth one. Little sorrows sit and wait. Now, this is an example of personification, right? Why would this be considered personification? I'll tell you what it is, but do you want to try before I say anything?
Because non-living things is doing action, living things.
Yeah, so you are using qualities that are usually considered human attributes, or you're giving human attributes or qualities to something that is inanimate or non-living, right? So in this case, little sorrows, right? This is an emotion, and emotions by themselves, we do not consider them to be, to be able to perform any actions, right? Personification usually involves that. It could be involvement of certain verbs, right, which are usually considered attributes or something that would be only performed by a living being, right? Most of the times, the humans. But when you use that particular verb or verbs, group of verbs to talk about an action performed by an inanimate object, you call it personification. So you are basically giving human-like quality to something that is non-human. That is called personification, right? So in this case, little sorrows, sit and weep. Sit and weep is what uh, gives the personifying quality to little sorrows, right? Look at the fifth one, same thing, personification. The dish ran away with the spoon. Okay. So the dish ran away part, it is personifying. Right. What is being personified here? What is taking the human attribute in the sentence?
That is
The dish. Right. The dish is taking the personifying attribute of ran away. So if someone asks you what is the personified element in the sentence, it is the dish. Okay. And what is the figure of speech? The figure of speech is ran away, used as a personifier. Okay. Okay, sixth one again, the same. Stars winked in the midnight sky. Stars winked in the midnight sky. What is it that is personified?
Stars
Hmm,
and wing
stars,
is like
right?
twinkle.
Correct. Wink is the personified attribute, right? That attribute is being given to the personified element, that is stars. Okay. Okay. We have few more examples for personification. So wind rattled the windows as the storm raged. Two sets you have here. First set is what?
Wind.
Wind. Wind is the one which is personified, and rattled is your word that they used for personification. Then the second set there is
Storm.
storm, right? So storm is personified, and raged is the word that they used to personify the word storm. Okay. Eighth one. The engine gave one final protest before the car shuddered to a stop. What is being personified here?
Engine and car.
Engine and car, right? So, and what are the elements used to personify them? The case of engine, it is gave
Pro-
one final protest.
yeah.
The whole of that part, right? Gave one final protest, because we know that inanimate objects don't protest, but that attribute is given to the engine, right? And then second one is car, right? Shuddering is an action that is usually associated with is something that can move, right? So although car is inanimate, that attribute is given to car because it is also capable of moving, right? It also has the capability of movement. Although inanimate, it has been given that attribute to give some to add some flavor and intensity to the language, right? Okay. Ninth one, sunbeams peek through cracks in the clouds.
Sunbeams.
Yeah, sunbeams is personified, and what is the word that is used for personification?
Eat.
Heat, right? So when you read these sentences, do you see that their quality is quite different from the usual sentences that we use, right? So they add in some figurative element to your writing. And because of this, most of the times you'll also realize that this form of writing or this kind of use of language is mostly seen in, creative writing, right? Does not mean you cannot use it in other forms of formal writing as well. You can definitely use it to make your write-up more impressive. But the use of figurative language will have to be limited when it comes to writing professionally. I think for the last professional writing session, we had discussed this. We can use it in a very restricted and sparing way. If you're going to use a lot of figurative language in formal writing, the problem is that the language becomes non-specific, and whatever your idea of communication, purpose of communication is, that may get a little clouded, right? Your writing can become a little confusing to some people. Although it looks good and all, we should be using figurative language a little sparingly, right? Okay, so 10th one, very easy, right? Time marches. Time marches. What is
Time.
being personified? Time. Right? Correct. Time is personified, and marches is the word that we use to personify. Okay. The ocean was 11th one. The ocean was calling his name. The ocean was calling his name.
Ocean.
The
And
ocean. And calling, right?
yeah.
That part would be your personifying element. Now, so clear about personification, right? So next we are starting a different one, but you understand what personification is like, right? So personification also, like metaphor and simile, they come under the classification of comparison, right? Metaphor is direct comparison, simile would be indirect comparison, and personification is a special kind of comparison where you're giving human attributes to non-human objects, right? But that also belongs to the subcategory of comparison in figures of speech. Okay. All right. Now we're going to start with a new figure of speech. It's called metonymy. Okay. The pen is mightier than the sword. Now, what is metonymy? Any idea?
A part of it is part of the whole
Uh-huh.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, so you are right, but what you are
Oh,
giving me the definition for cynic decay. Okay, you correctly identified that there is some involvement of substitution here. So, like simile, metaphor, and personification was subcategorized under comparison, right, or figures of speech that help you compare. Metonymy is used for substitution, right? So, substitution is the second subcategory, and within that, we have the figure of speech which we call as metonymy. Mhm. So metonymy is also a substitutor, but it is not part and whole. The part and whole is cynic that we will discuss whenever it comes.
ma'am,
Metonymy is
it
a
is a
direct.
word substituted for another word that is closely associated with. Right?
Closely related, right? Closely related.
Yes, ma'am.
A related word is used to substitute for something else. So can you explain that based on what you have in the question? The pen is mightier than the sword. The answer is already there. Signifies deliberation and war. So when you say the pen is mightier than the sword, you have substituted the word deliberation or discussion with the word pen. Right? So when I say the pen, I what I mean to say is that see, it is always better to consult, discuss, and deliberate on something than going on for a war. The sword directly signifies war. Right? This is a direct substitution there. So the pen is mightier than sword can be rewritten without the figure of speech or metonymy as deliberation is always better than going on for a war. Okay. So that is what the metonymy is used for. It's a substitution. The figure of speech is uses substitution. So here in this case, deliberation is substituted with the word pen and war is substituted with the word the sword. Okay.
Yes,
Understood?
ma'am.
Any questions? Okay. Others, any questions? Nothing? Okay. All right. Now, look at the 13th one. From the cradle to the grave. You can see this is an example of metonymy. And what do you see here? What does the cradle signify?
Birth.
Birth, right? Yeah, correct. So the cradle signifies the birth and grave signifies obviously death. So you have substituted the word, correct. So you have substituted the word birth and death using another expressions like the cradle and the grave, right? So instead of directly saying birth and death, you've used a word that is closely related to that and substituted it with that, right? To have the figure of speech is called metonymy. Okay. Okay. Fourth one. Sorry, 14th. I have never read Milton. What is the figure of speech? This is the word which is metonymized here.
Milton.
Milton, right? And Milton stands for Milton's works, right? Milton is a writer from the 14th century, right? Uh, but when I say I have never read Milton, I'm using the writers or the author's name to substitute his works. So that stands, the word Milton or the name of the author here stands in place of his works, right? So that way this is metonymy because we have substituted, right? Milton's works with his name, right? Milton here refers to Milton's works. Okay, now next one, 15th one. So, okay, any question on metonymy? Have you understood what that is or are there questions?
Ma'am, please give me one more example.
For this, so don't you remember the one from, I think the lecture, right? The Kiwis played well in today's match. So what does Kiwi stand for in that?
People from New Zealand.
Not people from New Zealand. Kiwis in that context refers to the team players of New Zealand, right? The cricket team of New Zealand.
Yes.
They're usually referred to that. So when I say the Kiwis played well, I'm saying that the team members of the New Zealand cricket team have played well, right? Or I think if I remember, another example was uh, the White House has wished Indians on the occasion of Diwali, right? So White House here refers to who? The substitution for the president of the USA, right? So instead of writing the president of the USA, you said the White House, right? So these are all examples of metonymy. Substitution, direct substitution. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, we can use figures of speech more in essays as compared to letters, and we should do it.
So see, where should you use figures of speech? More than, categorizing it based on the type of text document you write, you make a decision of using figures of speech or not to use it based on the audience you are writing for and the purpose you are writing for, right? If it is something, essays, see, not all essays can take figurative speech, right? You cannot write figurative language or use figurative language for all kind of essays. Say you are writing a reflective essay for, say you're writing a, not a reflective essay, say you're writing a report. Report is also a kind of essay, right? So if you're writing a work report, then you're not expected to use figurative language or figures of speech there. Whereas if you're writing a reflective essay for, say, an admission process, or you're writing for a column, right, in editorial or something, then figurative language is okay. So it's the medium and the audience and the purpose that decides whether you're allowed to use figurative language or to what extent you are allowed to use figurative language. All of this is decided based on your purpose, audience, and your medium. Right? Sorry, not medium, mostly purpose and audience. Medium could be any, it could be even your social media. But your purpose and audience, who you are writing for, and what you are writing for is what will decide whether you can use figures of speech or figurative language to be more precise, right? So if it is more professional in nature, say if you're writing a research report or you're writing a work report, then people will not appreciate you using figurative language because it's a more direct form of communication, and it is compulsory that each part of what you write is uh, understood by all the people who are going to read it. And everyone may not be good with figurative language, right? So your audience and your purpose is what eventually will decide if you're allowed to use or to what extent you're allowed to use figurative language. Medium is okay. So it's not as much about, I can use it in essays as opposed to letters or anything. Even in letters, you can use figurative language, but your audience should be someone who's more, accepting and more deserving of something like a figurative language. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think metonymy should be clear to you by now. We are going to start off with a new kind of figure of speech. This is called hyperbole, right? Not hyperbole, it's hyperbole. The right pronunciation is that. What is hyperbole, if you can recall?
Exaggeration.
Exaggeration, right? So whenever you want to now, why do you want to exaggerate? The question is always, why would you exaggerate, right? Exaggeration is usually when you want to show the intensity of something, right? Like for example, I died laughing, right? So did you actually die? You did not, right? Why are you using something like this? It's a very exaggerated form of expression. You use it because you want to show the intensity of the feeling, right? Whatever you want to show how intense that particular emotion or feeling was for you at that point of time. So for that purpose, you use the figure of speech that's called hyperbole, right? It's exaggeration. Helps you exaggerate your whatever you're using, and as a consequence, it helps you to convey the right amount of emotion and intensity of the emotion to the listener or the reader, right? Now, look at this example. Virtues as the sands of the shore. Okay. Which part is the figure of speech here? It's already highlighted, or you need to do is
Sands
take a
of the
closer look
shore.
at it. Sorry?
Sands of the shore.
As the sands of the shore. Can you explain it a little bit? Virtues as the sands of the shore.
I think which are
Hmm.
easily swept away, like
No, not like, okay. Virtues as the sands of the shore. Okay. So see here the comparison or what the given expression is trying to convey to you is the say it was another way of putting it would be like, say if I'm talking about one of you and I say that she is the epitome of all female virtues, for example, right? Or say I'm talking about a particular character in a novel, and I say that this character or this queen was the epitome of all female virtues. What am I trying to say? The word epitome stands for the peak or the maximum of the female virtues that any woman can hold, right? So I am referring to the countlessness of something. Here again, as the sands of shore. So another way of putting the same sentence would be to say that the queen, her virtues were as the sands of the shore, right? What am I trying to say? Countless. Can you count sand?
no.
No, right? So using an expression like as the sands of the shore is an exaggeration because you're saying that, you're trying to show the intensity of somebody's virtues. And you're also giving the expression of the sands of shore to show that, it is countless. It is as countless as that. Okay. So in that sense, it is both an exaggeration and it's also a sort of substitution. But the more, underlined or the more underscored figure of speech here would be hyperbole, right? Although there is a element of substitution, if somebody asks you what is actually the highlighted figure of speech, it is hyperbole because there is exaggeration, right? You're saying the virtues as the sands of the shore, right? Showing too much of intensification of a certain quality or emotion. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that is why as the sands of the shore would be considered a hyperbolic figure of speech, right? Okay, let's look at the 16th one then. I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. I could eat a horse, right? That part would be exaggeration. Are you going to actually do that? No. So it's a figurative language just to show how uh, intense the feeling of hunger is. Okay, I hope you have understood that, right? No confusions here. Anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Next is the 17th one, I guess. Yes, she's as old as the hills. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Ma'am, she's very tall.
Very old, yeah. This is, of course, exaggeration to show that something, to say something is really old. You can say as old as the hills, right? Because hills are known to survive for a very long time. But do you see that there is an interfering figure of speech here, as old as the hills? There's another figure of speech here. Which one is that?
Simile?
Simile, right? So again, like in the previous case, like 15th, you had the as the sands of the shore. This also has qualities of simile and substitution, all that. But because of the kind of intensifier effect it gives out, uh, if there's a question on whether it is a simile or hyperbole, the most appropriate response to that would be that it's a hyperbole because there is an element of exaggeration involved, right? When I say as red as a rose, there is no exaggeration, right? It's an indirect comparison and it's a simple enough thing for anybody to understand. But saying something like as sands of the shore or as old as the hill, there's definitely an amount of exaggeration involved here. So if the question is whether this given figure of speech is a simile or a hyperbole, then the most appropriate answer would be hyperbole. If you have both options of simile and hyperbole, you can go ahead and mark that as well. In the absence of which, it is going to be taken as hyperbole. Okay, got it? Okay,
Yes,
questions? You understood that part, no? In case you have both the options, then you mark that particular option. But if it is only simile and hyperbole given separately, then the response would be hyperbole, right? Because of the highlighted effect of this figure of speech is exaggeration. Although structurally it might look like a simile. Okay. Okay. 18th one. I walked a million miles to get there. Same, right? Hyperbole and walked a million miles. That would be your figure of speech here. Okay. 19th one. You can hear a pin drop a mile away. This is a very common expression, right? We talk about pin drop silence. So this is a replication of that. So here a pin drop, right? That is your hyperbole. 20th one is also easy. I think I gave you before we started. I think that was the first example I gave you. My example was a little different, but they're comparable. I died of embarrassment. Okay, so what is the hyperbole?
Died of embarrassment.
Yeah, died of embarrassment, right? So intensifier to show that how deep the embarrassment was. You said died of embarrassment. Okay. Okay. Now next one is euphemism. Any idea what euphemism is? When do we use euphemism?
Blunt.
So what kind? So before you answer, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you tell me what category of figure of speech will it belong to? Is it comparison? Is it contradiction? Is it substitution? What is it?
substitution.
Substitution, right? Euphemism also, like metonymy, is a kind of figure of speech which you use to substitute, but a special kind of substitution. Okay, now whoever was answering, go ahead. What is euphemism?
We can use it when to blunt usual statements which are too offensive or
Correct. Yes, which are considered offensive, right? Or another word you use is taboo. If you think that a particular expression or a usage of language is taboo or offensive. By taboo, we mean, something that is considered offensive. Same thing. Then you use a certain set of expressions to tone it down or to make it more, to make it less blunt, right? So that is what is euphemism. Examples would be,
Indirect.
when you,
Right?
sorry.
Indirect word.
Yeah, correct. Like to use a set of words or substitute something with more of an indirect expression, right? That's also a right way of looking at it. So example would be, something like you say somebody passed away instead of saying somebody died, right? Or someone is, uh, what were the other examples? This is from the lecture, right? Passed away was there in the lecture. Then,
For the
sorry.
um, the job related to someone
Sorry.
getting terminated, but
Yeah,
I don't.
correct. Correct.
Yeah.
But you don't remember the expression. Okay, anyway, um, what was that? Downsized,
Yeah.
you mean, no? That was the expression. Downsized. So when you say downsized, you're basically meaning to say that somebody has been eliminated or someone has been terminated. Or cut to size. When you say somebody's cut to size, you're saying that, their either their achievements were reduced, or you would say that someone has climbed down from their, say, importance. So instead of saying that this person has been made unimportant, you can say the person has been cut to size, right? That is also a euphemistic expression, right? Instead of saying it directly that, see, your importance is reduced, you say, see, you have been cut to size, right? Okay, so that is euphemism. Now
Ma'am,
let's see. Ah,
ma'am, can we say here it is quoting of words means negative to positive?
no, it is not negative to positive. It is only, the process is called amelioration, right? That's the technical term that you use. Basically, it means so if in hyperbole the idea was to exaggerate, here what you do is you bring it down, you make it more balanced, right? That is euphemism.
Okay.
Okay. The word amelioration also means to balance, but that's a technical term. The common meaning or the more suitable meaning would be to balance out something. It's an opposite of hyperbole. In hyperbole, you exaggerate. Here, you bring down that. Okay. Right. So, some examples. The car is certified pre-owned. Certified pre-owned. Can you guess what it would mean?
Second hand, maybe.
Right? It is second hand. So the car is certified pre-owned means that this is a second-hand car. So instead of saying that, oh, this is a second-hand car, no, you can say, oh, this car is certified pre-owned. Now, see, a lot of this, no, this is why I said that it would be in relation to hyperbole. Although there the idea would be to exaggerate, and here it is to bring it down. But since both have some elements of, uh, shrouding the actual meaning or the actual expressive meaning, you will see a lot of expression which might look a little unreal, like this one. Certified pre-owned doesn't make much sense. But the idea here is that you're using it as a euphemistic expression to avoid using the word second hand. Okay. Okay. So certified pre-owned is a euphemistic approach. Now, so 22nd one, she's not sick, she's under the weather. So under the weather, right? So instead of saying that she's gravely sick or something, you say under the weather. This is a common expression. Actually, you'll see this in sick leave letters also. I feel a little under the weather today. Okay, basically means you are sick, not feeling well. So you can stick it. Now you can ask yourself, what's the problem in saying that I am gravely sick? Why do I have to use euphemism here? See, that depends from person to person, right? Some people are, when you say offensive or taboo, there are certain common expressions that would be considered as offensive by everyone. But for some people, their grade is different. They might not agree with you that certain things are offensive. So an example of that would be this. Under the weather is a, you at the best can say that it's a figurative expression. It's not always a compulsory expression in the context where you want to say you're gravely sick. Because for us, it is okay. We don't find anything offensive that to tell somebody that you're gravely sick. But if you, if you look at your older generations and all, at least I have found people like that in my locality. Some people find it a little difficult to tell people that they're not feeling well or they are sick or something for their own biases and prejudices, right? So probably people like that used to have these kind of euphemistic expression. For the modern age population, probably this would look like too much, not necessarily required. Nevertheless, it's good to, language of obviously is looked in a retrospective sense also. It's not always the current language that we use, especially when it comes to figurative language. We see that there's a lot of usage of terms and expression that are no long, no, maybe today it is not considered very good to use it, but still, by the practice or convention, people still use it in writing and speech. So this is one such expression, under the weather. But the major point here is that the expression under the weather is euphemistic in nature. Okay. 23rd one, he's not a liar, he's creative with the truth. Which part?
Creative with it.
Creative with the truth. So instead of calling somebody liar, saying that he's telling a lie, uh, you say, okay, he's creative with the truth. Now, here again, this is not in the positive sense, right? This has a sarcastic tone. You're technically calling the person a liar, but you're just, trying and adding some sarcastic tones to it and using the expression figuratively or euphemistically to tone down, okay, on the word liar. Okay. Next is, so euphemism understood? Any question here? Nothing? Okay. So the next one is irony. What is special about irony? I think last week we discussed about it. Irony again, which subcategory would you put it in? Is it contradiction? Is it comparison? Is it substitution?
Contradiction.
Irony mostly comes within the area of contradiction, right? What are the other figures of speech which you can place within irony? Sorry, within contradiction.
Paradox.
Yeah, you can place paradox. Then others, irony, antithesis, paradox, they're all subcategory. They're all classified under another figure of speech. Can you tell me what that is? As in, they are considered as a subcategory. That is considered as a subcategory of this particular figure of speech. Have you come across juxtaposition? Right?
Yes.
So
Yes, ma'am.
juxtaposition also works similarly, wherein you have two opposing ideas placed together, right? So irony, antithesis, and the other one is oxymoron. They can all be classified under juxtaposition, right? Oxymoron, the difference between irony, paradox, and oxymoron would be that in oxymoron, it would be just a set of words, right? The contradicting pair would be two words, like bittersweet, right? This was a bittersweet experience. So, the contradicting pair is two words, right? Only there's involvement of only two words. Whereas in case of paradox and in case of irony, it is more situational in nature, right? So let's look at the example here. The child of cobbler has no shoe, right? So the whole of that statement, in case of paradox and irony, it is either the situation that is specified or the statement itself that undergoes, which gives you a contrasting effect, right? Uh, the child of cobbler has no shoe, right? That statement is what? It is ironical in nature. Why is it an irony? Because cobbler makes shoes for everyone, right? But the person is not able to give one for the child. So all of these figures of speech, irony, paradox, antithesis, they produce a contrasting effect. Their statements can produce a contrasting effect. Irony, because in the first appearance, when you look at the literal meaning of the statement given here, this might sound like untrue, right? You can ask, how can the cobbler's child can, not have a shoe? It is impossible. But you read it as a statement as a whole, you place it in the, context of social commentary, you understand, oh, okay, this sounds like a false statement, but actually the statement can be true. So at the same time, it can have both a zero value as well as a one value, right? So it's true and untrue both at the same time, which is why we say contradictory statement. Okay. So because of this nature, usually irony, paradox, antithesis, all of it, juxtaposition, all of that, they are used for social political commentaries, right? You remember that example? Okay, I think we have it here. So example of paradox. Let's see the last sentence here, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Now, it has two parts, right? One is all animals are equal. That's your first part. Second part is you look at example 28 on the screen. Okay, that's what we're discussing. So all animals are equal, one part. Second part is some animals are more equal than others. So there are two statements involved here, both in contradiction to each other. If all animals are equal, then some animals cannot be more equal than the others. So in the first approach, in the first look, it looks like they are two untrue statements or they are contradictory to each other. But when you read it as a whole, you know that we are presenting a real situation, right? Understood this part?
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Ma'am, some animals are equal means we are seeing as a human being, but some are more equal means
Correct.
classification of education or some other criteria.
It's a commentary on the social situation in general, but the author has decided instead of using the word man or human, they have tried to talk about it indirectly using animals. Right? This is a statement that has been taken from George Orwell's Animal Farm, and it's a social commentary. That novel is a social commentary on the realities of social hierarchies in the world. Right? So although the ideal stage is where everybody is equal and everyone just keeps saying that as well, but we know that in reality, not everyone is equal, right? There is definitely a hurt. So animal, yes, is also used here as a figurative. That's also figurative approach, as a substitution. So, okay, got it? But the main point that you need to understand is the kind of figure of speech. All of these figure of speech, whether that is irony, whether that is paradox, they all survive on one particular subcategory, which is contradiction. The figurative language is, or the figurative expression is produced using contradictory efforts. You will find elements of contradiction or untrue elements when you read the statement, but when you read that as a whole, you know that, okay, this can be true also, right? Understood? Any doubts there? No? All good? Okay. Okay. So irony is this 24th, we discussed that. Now, word fun. Word fun, you remember that sentence from last class? Does February, March? No, but April, May. Right? So what is which are the words that are used as fun here? Does February, March? No, but April, May. Which words are used as puns here?
February, March, and April, May.
No. Only two words, not February, March, only March and May, right? So does February, March, here you mean it in two different ways, right? So the word March may have two different meanings, and both meanings are applicable in the same context. So does February, March, here March does not refer to the name of the month March, right? Here it means the action verb March. Okay. Then No, but April, May. Here again, the word May is in fun. Here it does not take the meaning of the word May as the name of the month May, but here it is used as the model verb May, right? So any word that can hold more than one meaning, at least two meanings, and their meanings can be used in uh, a way that is different from its usual meaning. Like in this case, both March and May, they're names of the months, right? But they're also used in a very different context as verbs, one as a normal verb, another as a model verb, right? So this particular technique is called word fun. So you use the same word, which has a different meaning, to be used with a secondary meaning, the second meaning, whatever it has, right? That is called word fun. So when you keep it in the sentence, it looks like, can February, March, no, but no, but April, May. It looks like, all the four of them are given as the names of the uh, months. But you read it closely, you know that, no, it's the second meaning of the verb meaning of both March and May that is being used. But just because of its, meanings as the names of the month, it creates a sort of figurative effect, a sort of expressive approach in writing. Okay, let's look at the example that we have here to understand it better. 25th example, is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. So can you tell me what is it's already marked. Which word is used as a pun here in the sentence? Is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. The word liver, right? Liver, correct? So what are the two meanings? What is the commonly known meaning of the word liver?
The organ.
The organ, right? It signifies the word liver has both the meaning. It can either mean the organ of the body, but here it is meant to refer to the person who lives. So the person who lives a liver. So it's not a very commonly used word. So normally you don't have an expression like you don't look at a person who lives and say liver, right? But for the purpose of using it as a figurative word, you use the word liver here, right? Not to mean the organ, but to refer to a person who lives. Okay. So you understand, right? When a word is used as a pun, they are not used normally with that meaning in your day-to-day conversations or your normal language usage. But when used as a pun, you can use that particular word to mean whatever the means. Here it is the person who lives. Okay. So it depends upon the liver. Okay. Another way of looking at it is also that is life worth living? It depends upon the liver. So here, liver can have both the meanings of the organ and the person who lives. So it depends upon the liver means you're saying that, yeah, whether it is worth living or not depends upon the person who lives. Okay, that is decided by the person who lives. Or alternatively, it also means that it depends upon the liver. That is, if your liver is healthy, maybe you will find your life worth living, otherwise not. So both meanings in this case can be attributed, unlike in the previous case, right? If, in the example that I gave you, can February, March, no, but April, May, you could only take one meaning, that is of the words. You couldn't take the meaning of those words as the names of the month. In this case, however, both the meanings of liver can be used to produce two different meanings. Okay, understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let's look at another one. This is antithesis. Okay, some people would say antithesis, somebody would say antithesis. Both are correct. Okay, anti is like an American pronunciation, but antithesis is also right. Both are right. So either say antithesis or antithesis. Both are right. To err is human, to forgive divine. Okay. Antithesis is also presentation of two contradictory features or two contradictory situations. But antithesis has a special structure. So most of it you will see a repetition. To err is human, to forgive divine. So both the contradicting parts, the set parts that are in contradiction to each other, they are structurally similar, right? Structurally parallel, we call it. Why do we call it parallel? Because see, they look very similar in structure. No, to err is human. to forgive divine. Something like no pain, no gain. Okay. So structurally, they will have some parallel with each other, but uh, they are also part of your subcategory called contradiction, right? So to err is human, to forgive divine. There's a contradictory element, two contradictory elements provided together, but in terms of structure, they look parallel. So both begins with the infinitive verbs. One is to err, the other is to forgive, right? So in that sense, because of the similarity of the grammatical structures used, it produces a parallel effect. But in terms of expression, it gives you the contradictory meaning, right? Contradictory figure of speech. Look at the second example there. Give every man thy ear, but few thy words. Right? You see a repetitive parallel structure, right? Grammatical parallel structure. That's why it is antithesis. And also, additionally, it provides you a contradictory approach. Okay. So in terms of what is the part which is the figure of speech, for antithesis, the whole of the thing, no? Like to err is human, to forgive divine. No pain, no gain. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. The whole part of it would be considered antithesis, okay? So unlike in the other cases where we were underlining a certain part and then taking it out as a figure of speech, in these cases, the whole of it would be considered the figure of speech. Same is the case for paradox, same is the case for irony. The whole of the statement, the whole of the sentence that is given would be considered the figure of speech. Okay. Any questions?
Yes. No, ma'am.
Okay, so we have definitely, I think, left out a few figure of speech from this discussion, but they are easy. That's why they are not being included, right? These are usually the ones which are a little tougher. Let me give you one more sentence before we close today's class. We discussed this in the last class, but I just want to because that's also an important one. Uh, he fell fast asleep on the wheels. He fell fast asleep on the wheels. Which part of
Simile.
the sentence is, sorry?
Simile.
Not simile. Simile, there is no comparison. No?
And it is part to whole.
Part to the whole. So, what do you call that figure of speech?
Synecdoche.
Synecdoche, right? Synecdoche. So, here the word wheels is what is in the figurative language. He fell fast asleep on the wheels. Wheels refers to car. It's only a part of the car, but you're using the part of the element to refer to the whole. When I use the word wheels here, I'm actually basically saying that what I'm referring to is the car or any vehicle, let's say. But I've only used the word wheels, which is a part of that whole body, to refer to it, right? So this kind of expression is called synecdoche. You can do the reverse also, like you can mention the whole to refer to the part also, right? So, for example, I am going for a lunch at my friend's. So here, friends is in plural, but actually the reference is only to one among the friends that the person has, not everybody together. When I say I'm going to or I'm staying at my friend's, I don't mean that I'm staying at every of my friends' place, right? It's just one person, but I'm using it in plural. So here it is whole, sorry, part. The first one was part to whole, and the second one that I just mentioned about friends, it is whole to part. And both of this expression is categorized under the figure of speech, which we call as synecdoche. Okay, that's also an important figure of speech. Okay, important and sometimes a little confusing. Rest of them, like simile and all, which we did not have in the group, I did not include because they are easy to recognize and do. Okay, so keep looking at this particular document and particularly the examples that you have in your PPT. Revise it at least twice, thrice, or no upper limit, but at least read it for a good number of times, say at least 3 or 4 times, so that you're familiarized with the examples in the slides, right? That will help you solve questions better in exam. Okay, don't read too much widely here and there. If you wish to do, you may, but I think for the time being, it's important that you read through the lecture slides and the PPT, right? Keep those examples handy. understand them better. And if you have doubts in any of those, then you can write to us also or come to the live session and get it clear. But focus more on those so that you don't get confused in the exam for the questions on figure research. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So any questions for me? Otherwise, we'll close. It's already 7:10. If you have anything to ask, you may. Otherwise, we'll close the book.
And silent decay is based on the substitution of some other.
Substitution. Yes. Silent decay is based on substitution. Okay.
And the pun is put on the contradiction.
Fun is based on, contradictory meanings. Yes. You may look at it that way. Yes. Okay. All right
And
then.
one more. Do not
Go
go
ahead.
gentlemen to that good night. Man. It is which figure of speech.
Sorry, no, I did not hear you.
Then the sentence is, do not go gentle into that good night.
Do not go gentle.
Into that good night.
Your voice is not clear to me. Can you write it down in the chat or something so that I can get? Has anyone else understood? If anyone else has understood, you can also tell me.
Actually, I think, ma'am,
Ah,
he was saying into that good night, if I'm not wrong.
into that good night. Do not go into that good night. Yeah, okay. What about that?
Then the answer is metaphor. EQ 1.1.
The answer is metaphor. There's only this much. Do not go into that good night.
Yes, ma'am.
Gentle is there, actually. I think he missed gentle.
Gentle. Do not go into that good gentle night.
No, do not go gentle into that good night.
Oh, do not go gentle into that good night. And the question was to pick out the figure of speech.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There could be multiple options here. You can read it as a metaphor. You can also read it as a personified element. What options did you have?
Ma'am, how do we conclude it is a metaphor?
How do we conclude it as a metaphor? See, for most of the questions that you have, if you're able to do a comparison, right, then it would be a metaphor. So something like a good night, right? Good night is basically a metaphorical usage, right? You don't have to, I mean, in the normal sense, you do not qualify. You can qualify night as dark night or starry night or something, but not good night, right? It's an unusual expression. So when you're using it as an expression like this, you're basically meaning to use it as a metaphor. Okay. Okay. In the presence of gentle or absence of that, it would be used as a metaphor, right? I'm trying to explain why do we need, if the answer is metaphor, which I think should be, it is a metaphor because you're saying good night, right? Which is an unusual expression. It's not a characteristic element that you associate with night, right? What is good or bad about night, right? So when you say it was a bad night or a good night, you are using it as a metaphor that stands as indirect comparison to some event or some emotion that you have had for that particular time, right? That is why it is metaphorical in usage. Otherwise, if I say dark night or starry night, it's direct. No, and I know there is no metaphorical element involved there. It's a direct thing that you're talking about. It's about something that you can experience and see. When it is figurative, the difference is that it is not literal, and hence it's something that needs needs to be experienced by the person itself, right? Which is why it is metaphorical or figurative. Got it? Arpit,
Yes, ma'am.
right? All right. Okay. Then we'll wind up for today, right? And we'll meet next week again. We'll discuss clauses for the next class. Okay. So see you again next week. See and check if this document is available in your uh, supplementary tab. In case you can't find it, please write to us. Okay. All right, everyone. See you.
Thank you, ma'am.